for $200 in the category Great Expectations. In the newspaper, Marmaduke is a funny one. Great Dane for $400 in the category Great Expectations. Clingman's Dome is the highest peak in this Appalachian range. Great Smoky Mountains for $600 in the category Great Expectations. As it's the nickname of Greg Norman, you're gonna need a bigger golf cart. Great White Shark for $800 in the category Great Expectations. A Montana city is named for these on the Missouri, which Meriwether Lewis called the grandest sight he'd ever beheld. Great Falls for $1,000 in the category Great Expectations. Now extinct. We know what these look like from ones mounted in museums and drawings like this by Audubon. Great Auk for $100 in the category The Bible. The 10 included flies, lice, frogs and locusts. The Plagues of Egypt for $200 in the category The Bible. John chapter 2 relates this incident at Cana as Jesus' first miracle. Changing water into wine for $300 in the category The Bible. In a parable, Jesus compared this kingdom to a grain of mustard seed. Kingdom of Heaven for $400 in the category The Bible. When Eliphaz told him, "Man is born unto trouble," he could have answered, "You're telling me." Job for $500 in the category The Bible. The Aramaic name for Calvary, the hill in Jerusalem on which Jesus was crucified. Golgotha for $100 in the category Historic People. In 1902 she and her husband isolated pure radium chloride. Marie Curie for $200 in the category Historic People. He didn't fiddle around after the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD. He built himself a palace called the Golden House. Nero for $300 in the category Historic People. Eureka! This Greek mathematician discovered the formulae for the volume and surface of a sphere. Archimedes for $400 in the category Historic People. This Italian banker for whom the New World was named organized the supplies for Columbus's voyages. Amerigo Vespucci for $500 in the category Historic People. Mourners at Monet's 1926 funeral included fellow artists and this World War I French premier known as the Tiger. Georges Clemenceau for $100 in the category The 1970s. In October 1979 he became the first pope to visit a president at the White House. Pope John Paul II for $200 in the category The 1970s. East and West Germany and the Bahamas were admitted to this international organization September 18, 1973. United Nations for $300 in the category The 1970s. Name given to the US-USSR weapons negotiations. The first ended in 1972, the second in 1979. SALT, Strategic Arms Limitation Talks for $400 in the category The 1970s. In 1975, New Zealand's John Walker ran the mile in 3 minutes 49 seconds and 4 milliseconds, beating this man's 1954 mark by 10 seconds. Roger Bannister. For $500 in the category, the 1970s. The first baby conceived outside a woman's body was born in this country. England, Louise Brown. For $400 in the category, I'm a Star. It's a nickname for the U.S. flag. Stars and Stripes. For $800 in the category, I'm a Star. These fruit chews by Wrigley are advertised as a pack of contradictions. Starbursts. For $1,200 in the category, I'm a Star. This multiple-armed marine animal is harmful to oyster beds but tough to eradicate, since it can regenerate body parts. A starfish. For $1,600 in the category, I'm a Star. Both Barbra Streisand and Kris Kristofferson won Golden Globe Awards for their roles in this 1976 musical remake. A Star is Born. For $2,000 in the category, I'm a Star. Meaning ill-fated, and usually paired with lovers. This term was used by Shakespeare in his prologue to Romeo and Juliet. Star-crossed. For $200 in the category, you say Myanmar, I say Burma. Until 1937, Burma was a province of this big neighboring current country. India. For $400 in the category, you say Myanmar, I say Burma. Yangon and this are both names for Burma's longtime capital. Rangoon. For $600 in the category, you say Myanmar, I say Burma. Nearly 90% of Burmese practice this religion. Buddhism. For $800 in the category, you say Myanmar, I say Burma. Burma has universal suffrage, but from 1990 until November 7, 2010, its government did not bother having these elections. For $1,000 in the category, you say Myanmar, I say Burma. Burma has about 1,200 miles of coastline on the Andaman Sea and this big bay. The Bay of Bengal. For $100 in the category, Poetry Potpourri. He married Minnehaha, the loveliest of Dakota women. Hiawatha. For $200 in the category, Poetry Potpourri. Milton work that begins, of man's first disobedience, and the fruit of that forbidden tree. Paradise Lost. For $300 in the category, Poetry Potpourri. An 8-line stanza, it's usually the first 8 lines in an Italian sonnet. Octave. For $400 in the category, Poetry Potpourri. Secretary to the Lord Deputy of Ireland, he idealized his boss as a knight in The Fairy Queen. Edmund Spenser. For $500 in the category, Poetry Potpourri. She described her nervous breakdown in her 1960 poetry collection, To Bedlam and Part Way Back. Anne Sexton. For $200 in the category, the N Times. 2-word term for a gathering of reporters held by a government official to release important information. News conference. for $400 in the category, the N times. This adjective was inspired by a mythological youth who constantly stared at his own reflection. Narcissistic, for $600 in the category, the N times. In 37 AD, noted husband poisoner Agrippina gave birth to this future Roman emperor. Nero, for $800 in the category, the N times. Campbell University and Appalachian State University are both found in this state. North Carolina, for $1,000 in the category, the N times. 9-letter word for the newbie at the nunnery. Novitiate, for $200 in the category, biology. 3 calves created this way made headlines back in 1988. Cloning, for $400 in the category, biology. The top 3 inches of an acre of soil may contain billions of nematodes, this type of creature. Worm, for $600 in the category, biology. Classed as a subphylum of the chordates. They make up about 3% of animal species, including mammals. Vertebrates, for $800 in the category, biology. A few 100 million years ago, some plants had the bright idea to protect and spread their embryos. In these seeds, for $1,000 in the category, biology. In cell division, mitosis splits the nucleus and cytokinesis splits this liquid, cushioning the nucleus. Cytoplasm, for $400 in the category, the Bible. Her first husband was the Hittite Uriah. David was second. Bathsheba, for $800 in the category, the Bible. The chief god of the Canaanites. Baal, for $1,200 in the category, the Bible. The youngest son of Jacob and Rachel. Benjamin, for $1,600 in the category, the Bible. He traveled with Paul to spread Jesus' teachings until they disagreed and separated. Barnabas, for $2,000 in the category, the Bible. It's at his feast that Daniel interprets the writing on the wall. Belshazzar, for $400 in the category, forests. Established in 1891 as the USA's first national forest. Shoshone National Forest lies in Wyoming adjacent to this national park. Yellowstone, for $800 in the category, forests. Through efforts by the VFW, a memorial forest in NC is named for this tree's poet who was killed in World War I. Joyce Kilmer, for $1,200 in the category, forests. Hell's Canyon, North America's deepest canyon, lies in this Idaho National Forest named for Chief Joseph's tribe. Nez Perce, for $1,600 in the category, forests. Wheeler Peak in Nevada has a grove of the oldest type of tree. These pines. They're 3,000 if they're a day. Bristlecone pines, for $2,800 in the category, forests. Mineral springs in this Belgian forest have made the town of Spa a popular health resort for 500 years. the Ardennes. For $100 in the category Mammals. Cheryl of the Clue Crew at SeaWorld in San Diego. Here comes the Asian small clawed type of this, which is smaller than the river type of North America. Otter. For $200 in the category Mammals. The Malayan flying fox, with a wingspan of over 5 feet, is really one of these mammals. Bat. For $300 in the category Mammals. Jimmy of the Clue Crew at the San Diego Zoo. The Pacarana, which had an ancestor the size of a rhinoceros, is one of the largest of this order of mammals. Rodent. For $400 in the category Mammals. What we call a moose is known in Europe by this 3-letter name. Elk. For $500 in the category Mammals. One of these monkeys used in medical research was also the first mammal to go into space. Rhesus monkey. For $400 in the category American Lit. This Southern epic swept across the nation as the best-selling fiction book of 1936 and 1937. Gone with the Wind. For $800 in the category American Lit. In a popular short story, this famed orator saves a farmer who's sold his soul to the devil. Daniel Webster. For $2,000 in the category American Lit. In a Whitman poem in memory of Abraham Lincoln, it's the title that precedes Our Fearful Trip is Done. Oh Captain, my Captain, quote. For $1,600 in the category American Lit. Governor Willie Stark in this Robert Penn Warren novel is said to have been modeled after Huey Long. All the King's Men. For $2,000 in the category American Lit. This 4-letter Melville novel is subtitled A Narrative of Adventures in the South Seas. Omoo. For $400 in the category The Constellations. This constellation's belt points southeasterly to Sirius, the brightest star in the nighttime sky. Orion. For $800 in the category The Constellations. You might have to strain your eyes to see all 160 visible stars in this constellation. The first alphabetically. Andromeda. For $1,500 in the category The Constellations. The Sumerians believed it represented their sky god, An, pouring waters of immortality upon the earth. Aquarius. For $1,600 in the category The Constellations. Its second brightest star is called Kochab, Arabic for the North Star, because that's what it once was. Ursa Minor. For $2,000 in the category The Constellations. In 1572, Tycho Brahe discovered a supernova in this constellation which looks like an irregular W or M. Cassiopeia. For $200 in the category Words. While a knave with K is a jack, a knave without the K is part of this. A church. For $300 in the category Words. From Latin for make it similar, it's an exact copy or reproduction of a document. A facsimile. For $400 in the category Words. Literally meaning food bet, its supplies advance to a miner in return for shares in profits. A grub stake. For $500 in the category words. The job of a nomenclator? Giving names to things. For $200 in the category you're such an animal. It's the only seal with tusks. A walrus. For $400 in the category you're such an animal. In parts of Asia, more than half the milk produced comes from the water type of this bovid. Buffalo. For $600 in the category you're such an animal. North America's two venomous lizards are the Mexican beaded lizard and this scary denizen of the Southwest. A Gila monster. For $800 in the category you're such an animal. This agile monkey of the Americas dines on, among other things, the arachnid in its name. A spider monkey. For $1,000 in the category you're such an animal. Around 9 pounds at birth. The pygmy species of this African mammal may eventually reach some 600 pounds. A hippopotamus. For $200 in the category song in common. Don McLean and Madonna. American Pie. For $400 in the category song in common. Creedence Clearwater Revival and Ike and Tina Turner. Proud Mary. For $600 in the category song in common. Dolly Parton and Whitney Houston. I Will Always Love You. For $800 in the category song in common. George Benson and Whitney Houston. The Greatest Love of All. For $1,000 in the category song in common. Dionne Warwick and Aretha Franklin. Say a Little Prayer. For $200 in the category sports. The Greeks reckon time from this event, first held in Olympia in 776 BC. The Olympics. For $100 in the category famous folks. The mind-boggling puzzle he invented in the 1970s made him one of Hungary's few self-made millionaires. Erno Rubik. For $200 in the category famous folks. Though unrelated, aeronautical record breakers Gina and Chuck both have this last name. Jaeger. For $300 in the category famous folks. His dad served 34 years in Congress, his mom was born again, and his brother nicknamed him Pat. Pat Robertson. For $400 in the category famous folks. World Book's photo of Carrie Nation shows her with a Bible in one hand and this in the other. Hatchet. For $500 in the category famous folks. Interest rates can't fall sharply unless the government budget is reduced, says this Federal Reserve CHRMN. Alan Greenspan. For $200 in the category movie reviews. The Dayton Daily News said that this 1999 Scarefest does for the woods what Jaws did for water. The Blair Witch Project. For $400 in the category movie reviews. Premiere Magazine said of this raunchy 1999 teen comedy, there's something about pastry. American Pie. For $1,300 in the category movie reviews. Barred to the Bone was the headline of Entertainment Weekly's review of this 1998 romance. Shakespeare in Love, for $800 in the category Movie Reviews. Faltering at the box office. This 1999 Cruise and Kidman film was dubbed "risque business" by People magazine. Eyes Wide Shut, for $1,000 in the category Movie Reviews. The LA Times said this 1999 Liam Neeson movie about a possessed house had all the terror of a jury notice. The Haunting, for $200 in the category Be Sure. Type of creature seen here. Baboon, for $400 in the category Be Sure. A type of unglazed china, or a thick cream soup often made with lobster. Bisque, for $2,000 in the category Be Sure. This ethnic group lives in the Pyrenees and speaks Euskera. Basque, for $800 in the category Be Sure. It's the capital of Slovakia. Bratislava, for $1,000 in the category Be Sure. It's the 19th century German style of furniture seen here. Biedermeier, for $400 in the category The History Boys. Snorri Sturluson, from this island, wrote a history on Norwegian kings from Odin to his own time. Iceland, for $800 in the category The History Boys. William Coolidge, author of These Mountains in Nature and History, made the first winter climb of the Jungfrau. Alps, for $1,200 in the category The History Boys. Mark Bowden has written the story of this 1979 crisis, the first battle in America's war with militant Islam. Iran hostage crisis, for $1,600 in the category The History Boys. Charlotte Corday is like a star, cruel lovely in Thomas Carlyle's 1837 book titled This Event. The French Revolution, for $2,000 in the category The History Boys. The best-selling author of The Johnstown Flood and 1776 is also the narrator of the movie Seabiscuit. David McCullough, for $100 in the category Homophonic Pairs. A complete donut center. Whole Hole, for $200 in the category Homophonic Pairs. In a restaurant, it's a quartet's table request. For $300 in the category Homophonic Pairs. Contented performing kittens might be paid this way. Per, for $400 in the category Homophonic Pairs. A squash that's been pierced by a bull's horn. Gourd, for $500 in the category Homophonic Pairs. Remained sedate. Stayed, for $200 in the category Nutrition. Vitamin A is fat soluble. B1 is this soluble. Water, for $600 in the category Nutrition. As one of these, vitamin E helps destroy free radicals, perhaps contributing to cancer prevention. Antioxidants, for $800 in the category Nutrition. Oreos no longer contain this unhealthful fat that must be listed on food labels as of January 1, 2006. Trans fats. For $1,000 in the category Nutrition. If you get too much of this carotenoid found in carrots, your skin may turn yellowish-orange. Beta-carotene. For $200 in the category A mole. Famous for her mole, this supermodel was once married to Richard Gere. Cindy Crawford. For $400 in the category A mole. The cult movie El Topo, or The Mole, got distribution based on this Imagine Beatles recommendation. John Lennon. For $600 in the category A mole. The mole variety of this insect has forelegs adapted for shoveling. The males can chirp a mean tune. 2. A cricket. For $800 in the category A mole. In Austin Powers and Goldmember, the mole was played by this former child star of The Wonder Years. Fred Savage. For $1,000 in the category A mole. Instead of counting atoms, chemists simplify with the unit called a mole or this scientist's number. Amadeo Avogadro. For $200 in the category Stock Symbols. A fast food chain, JBX. Jack in the Box. For $400 in the category Stock Symbols. Remember them on April 15, HRB. H&R Block. For $600 in the category Stock Symbols. A footwear company, RBK. Reebok. For $800 in the category Stock Symbols. A healthcare provider, AET. Aetna. For $1,000 in the category Stock Symbols. Maker of Kleenex, KMB. Kimberly-Clark. For $400 in the category A Shakespeare Tour. A country, this precious stone set in the Silver Sea. England. For $800 in the category A Shakespeare Tour. A city, what news on the Rialto? Venice. For $1,200 in the category A Shakespeare Tour. A battlefield, I think there be 6 Richmonds in the field, 5 have I slain today instead of him. Bosworth Field. For $1,600 in the category A Shakespeare Tour. A city, if ever you disturb our streets again, your lives shall pay the forfeit of the peace. Verona. For $2,000 in the category A Shakespeare Tour. A castle, fear not, till Birnam Wood do come to it. Dunsinane. For $200 in the category Go jump in a lake. On the Nevada-Arizona border, 233 square miles. Lake Mead. For $400 in the category Go jump in a lake. On the Israel-Jordan border, 394 square miles. Dead Sea. For $600 in the category Go jump in a lake. Southern Florida, 663 square miles. Lake Okeechobee. for $600 in the category Go Jump in a Lake. Southern Egypt, 1,550 square miles. Lake Nasser, for $400 in the category Songs of the 60s. The Jefferson Airplane wondered, don't you want this? Don't you need this? Somebody to Love, for $1,200 in the category Songs of the 60s. A 1967 Jimi Hendrix single was titled The Wind Cries, Her. Mary, for $1,600 in the category Songs of the 60s. The opening shots of Apocalypse Now have a feeling of finality with this song by The Doors playing over them. The End, for $2,000 in the category Songs of the 60s. A revving motorcycle is featured on this Shangri-La's #1 hit. Leader of the Pack, for $100 in the category States of the Union. Trekking through the River of No Return wilderness area in this state will turn Boise to men. Idaho, for $200 in the category States of the Union. The first president from this state was the first president, George Washington. Virginia, for $300 in the category States of the Union. By far, it's the state with the most foreign-born people in its population. California, for $400 in the category States of the Union. Colorado is called the Centennial State because it entered the Union in this year. 1876, for $500 in the category States of the Union. This state sits on the east side of the Bering Strait. Alaska, for $100 in the category Read the Label. If roaches could read, they'd know this is where they check in. But they don't check out. Roach Motel, for $200 in the category Read the Label. The Q on your pantyhose package means they're this. Queen Size, for $300 in the category Read the Label. Label on this drink says it was authorized by decree, Emperor Napoleon III, the 23rd of June 1863. Perrier, for $100 in the category Title Film Folk. The Hurricane, 1999. Denzel Washington, for $200 in the category Title Film Folk. The Talented Mr. Ripley, 1999. Matt Damon, for $300 in the category Title Film Folk. Dr. Zhivago, 1965. Omar Sharif, for $400 in the category Title Film Folk. Emma, 1996. Gwyneth Paltrow, for $500 in the category Title Film Folk. Anna and the King, 1999. Jodie Foster and Chow Yun-fat, for $100 in the category French Names of Countries. Suisse, Switzerland, for $200 in the category French Names of Countries. Arabi Saudite, Saudi Arabia. For $300 in the category French names of countries. Norvège. Norway. For $400 in the category French names of countries. Libyan. Lebanon. For $500 in the category French names of countries. Lettonia. Latvia. For $400 in the category It's Canada. Canada celebrates Thanksgiving on the second Monday of this month, on the same day as our Columbus Day. October. For $800 in the category It's Canada. If you're sending a love letter to your Canadian sweetie and put SK on the envelope. She lives in this province. Saskatchewan. For $1,200 in the category It's Canada. In 1911, the U.S. and Canada signed a convention to give protection to these northern fur critters. Seals. For $4,000 in the category It's Canada. The Big Bay between Canada and Greenland was discovered by and named for this Englishman. William Baffin. For $2,000 in the category It's Canada. The name of this peninsula in SE Quebec might come from a Micmac Indian word meaning land's end. Gaspé. For $200 in the category Mothers of Invention. Laura Scudder didn't invent this taste treat but did invent a way to bag them so they could be a snack food staple. Potato chips. For $400 in the category Mothers of Invention. Donna Bailey co-created this arcade game where a leggy arthropod has to be removed from a mushroom patch. Centipede. For $600 in the category Mothers of Invention. In 1921, Kate Gleason built 100 tract homes, inspired by a visit to an assembly line for these cars. For $800 in the category Mothers of Invention. Patricia Bath has 4 patents for the laser that safely destroys this opacity of the eye's lens. Cataracts. For $1,000 in the category Mothers of Invention. Terry Paul claimed the 1965 invention of this device that had a range of 2 miles. We don't know if it was a 900 MHz. A cordless phone. For $400 in the category The Tower. Lightning not only strikes the same place twice. It strikes this 110-story Chicago tower hundreds of times a year. Sears Tower. For $800 in the category The Tower. Old Testament structure built on the plain of Shinar. Tower of Babel. For $1,200 in the category The Tower. Opened in 1976, it's the tallest structure in Canada. CN Tower. For $4,200 in the category The Tower. Upon its completion in 1930, the Chrysler Building beat out this structure as the world's tallest. The Eiffel Tower. For $2,000 in the category The Tower. It rises 865 feet above the Belle Fourche River in Wyoming. Devil's Tower. For $400 in the category ABBA Lyrics. You can jive having the time of your life. Ooh, see that girl, watch that scene, diggin' her. Dancing Queen. For $800 in the category ABBA lyrics. My, at this place, Napoleon did surrender. Waterloo. For $1,200 in the category ABBA lyrics. It proceeds, here I go again. My, how can I resist you? Mamma Mia. For $1,600 in the category ABBA lyrics. If you change our mind, I'm the first in line. Honey, I'm still free. Do this. Take a chance on me. For $2,000 in the category ABBA lyrics. So when you're near me, darling, can't you hear me? This. SOS. For $200 in the category baseball nicknames. One version of the origin of his nickname is that he'd say hey, man, because he couldn't remember names. Willie Mays. For $400 in the category baseball nicknames. A string of sterling postseason performances earned him the nickname Mr. October. Reggie Jackson. For $600 in the category baseball nicknames. He probably preferred the Iron Horse to his earlier nickname, Biscuit Pants. Lou Gehrig. For $800 in the category baseball nicknames. Known as the Big Unit, he reached 300 wins in 2009 and announced his retirement in 2010. Randy Johnson. For $1,800 in the category baseball nicknames. If this alliterative nickname were literally true, Babe Ruth would have ruled part of northern Pakistan. The Sultan of Swat. For $200 in the category annual events. This president loved oysters, and an annual oyster event takes place in his hometown, Oyster Bay, Long Island. Theodore Roosevelt. For $400 in the category annual events. Conceived by store employees. This department store's beloved Thanksgiving Day parade debuted in NYC in 1924. Macy's. For $600 in the category annual events. Dolls representing the emperor and empress occupy a place of honor during this Asian country's girls' festival. Japan. For $1,000 in the category annual events. Don't miss the pie-eating contest at this Northwest States Apple Blossom Festival in Wenatchee, Washington State. For $200 in the category transportation. Non-flyer John Madden travels on this, the Madden Cruiser, complete with bed and shower. Bus. For $4,000 in the category transportation. Doing this comes from the Roman custom of offering a drink to the gods when launching a ship. Breaking champagne on the prow. For $600 in the category transportation. In addition to a rudder and oars, most keelboats were equipped with these to aid travel. Sails. For $800 in the category transportation. Until 1937, the Lakehurst, New Jersey, Naval Air Station was the U.S. transatlantic terminal for these craft. Dirigibles. For $1,000 in the category transportation. Bells were rung across the U.S. as telegraphers relayed news of this event on May 10, 1869. Completion of the Transcontinental Railroad. For $200 in the category Cemeteries. Although Émile Zola's gravestone still rests at this city's Cimetière de Montmartre, his body was moved to the Panthéon. Paris. For $400 in the category Cemeteries. With more than 1 million burials. Rookwood Necropolis in this largest Aussie city is one of the world's largest. Sydney. For $600 in the category Cemeteries. About 250 people were buried in this tombstone. Arizona Cemetery from 1878 to 1884, including Billy Clanton. Boot Hill. For $800 in the category Cemeteries. The world's largest historical mosaic, The Birth of Liberty, can be found at this Southern Caliph Cemetery. Forest Lawn. For $1,000 in the category Cemeteries. 368 American servicemen from World War I are buried in this field. A U.S. military cemetery near Waregem, Belgium. Flanders Field. For $400 in the category Even Steven. In 1836 he became the first Secretary of State for the new Republic of Texas. Stephen, Austin. For $800 in the category Even Steven. In 1993 this British physicist made an appearance as himself on Star Trek: The Next Generation. Hawking. For $1,200 in the category Even Steven. Camptown Races is only one of the many popular songs written by this 19th-century composer. Stephen Foster. For $5,000 in the category Even Steven. Elected to the U.S. Senate from Illinois in 1847, he advocated the annexation of Cuba. Stephen Douglas. For $2,000 in the category Even Steven. This character was James Joyce's fictional counterpart in Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man and Ulysses. Stephen Dedalus. For $200 in the category French Leaders. Both Henry III and Henry IV were removed from office by this method. Assassination, victims of stabbing. For $400 in the category French Leaders. He married a Polish princess, lost Canada to the English and made a Pompadour center of his life. Louis XV. For $600 in the category French Leaders. In 1995 Jacques Chirac became president of this current numerical republic. Fifth Republic. For $800 in the category French Leaders. On July 17, 1429, with a little help from Joan of Arc, the seventh king of this name was crowned at Reims. Charles VII, the Dauphin Charles. For $2,000 in the category French Leaders. Louis, the nephew of this ruler of France, was the only ruler of the Second Republic. Napoleon Bonaparte. For $400 in the category Movie Title Pairs. 2002, This Girl and Stitch. Lilo. For $800 in the category Movie Title Pairs. 1974, Harry and This Cat. Tonto. For $1,200 in the category Movie Title Pairs. 1993. Benny and This Sister. June. For $1,600 in the category Movie Title Pairs. 1989. This CEO and Me. Roger.